because I have been watching their games progressively. Now we're in League One, I like to watch a League One football. I think you adapt to the league that you're in, don't you? And even on the Friday, the first weekend, there was a Championship game and there was a League One game. I ended up watching the League One game. I think it was Barnsley versus Mansfield. I thought it was quite interesting.
I did that, and I think to myself, what am I doing? I'm watching it, but I thought, actually, we're in this division.
Exactly. So bit of a reality check, wasn't it? So welcome back to BCFC Royal Blue. And this weekend, Birmingham City travel to Leyton Orient in the third week of the League One campaign. Now, Birmingham City are coming into this game off the back of a 3-2 away win at Wycombe, and Leyton Orient are coming into this off the back of a 1-0 defeat away at Charlton. Now, I don't know if you know this, but actually the last time we played Leyton Orient at this level in this division competitively was the famous Barry Fry 94 season. In fact, we were wearing this famous Triton shower shirt as well. That ended sadly on that day in a 2-1 defeat, but we're hoping this weekend will get us a better result. So, Dad, Birmingham City versus Leyton Orient, what are your thoughts and expectations for the game?
Well, I never thought I'd be saying this. If I sat here last season and thought, looking forward, I'd be saying this. But if we win this game against Leyton Orient, that would be 3 away wins on the bounce. 3 away wins on the bounce, because obviously we beat Wycombe last week, and before that in the Carabao Cup we beat Charlton. Well, both away. This is another away game.
We only won 3 away games in the entire season last competitive season, which is staggering, isn't it?
So this is a real good incentive for us, really, to build on what we did against Wycombe, which I thought was an excellent result for us. I see a lot of similarities here with Wycombe in terms of the size of the stadium. This has got a capacity of just shy of 9,300. Leyton Orient finished one place below Wycombe. They finished 11th in the League One division last season. So there's an awful lot to compare Wycombe and Leyton Orient. And I think that obviously we're going to analyse and talk about the playing style and etc. in a moment. But if we can come out with another win, I'll be absolutely, really elated with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched quite a bit of Orient in their first couple of games. So they lost 2-1 to Bolton in their first game, and they lost 1-0 away to Charlton. And they were quite unlucky in both games, to be honest. In fact, against Bolton, a goalkeeper mistake got Bolton's second goal. And against Charlton, they had to wait until 90 plus minutes to get that winner. So they're not getting trounced by the big teams. And in fact, Bolton, Charlton and Birmingham, that's a passage of fire for the opening 3 games of the League One season. That really is a pretty tough opening couple of fixtures. But I did notice some patterns in their passages of play, and this is a big one. So I know we're going to go into some strengths and weaknesses of Leyton Orient, but the big thing I noticed in the goals they're conceding, massive amounts of space in the attacking centre part of the pitch. Depending on who plays there, Williamson or Harris, they're going to be the key for me in this game. They're going to get a lot of time on the ball. We need for them to open up Orient and go through the channels. And to me, the game's going to be won against Orient through our number 10. I really believe that, because if you look at the goals they've conceded, it's been a lot of action down the middle of the park, which is really, really key. And they've got a good manager. His name's Richie Wellens. He's really impressive. If you watch him in the interviews, he's very direct. He's very down the line. And I saw a post-match interview with him after the back of, I think it was the Charlton game, and he name-dropped Birmingham, and he said Birmingham, Huddersfield, I think he threw Rotherham in there as well, Bolton. He said, he was quite open, and he said, we're playing in a division with teams this year that are very competitive. The 3 which have came up are very competitive, 4 from League Two, and the 3 which came down. And he said, lots of money being thrown around, big budgets. And he said, Orient have to rely on free transfers and loans, but what he said was really key, Dad, and he said he needs the characteristics in his players to have determination, belief and fight. So I have no doubt that Wellens will be telling his team that Birmingham have a deeper squad, a higher valued squad, but they're going to be fired up, and they're going to want to win every individual battle on the field. And I think they're going to be well fired up for this, aren't they? Because, not in an arrogant way, but we are effectively going to become sort of everyone's cup final, aren't we? They're going to be so revved up and fired up for this.
Well, we are, and that's every team is going to want to beat us. Every one of the team is going to get the scalp of Birmingham City. They'll look at what we've spent in the transfer market and look at the players that we brought down to the division from we already had, and they're going to think, well, if we can beat Birmingham, what a scalp that is. But one thing I've noticed about Orient in my research as well, they've lost a lot of goals as well. They did finish 65 points they got last season, which is not a bad return, allowing them to get 11. I think they're about 11 points off the playoffs, so they were not, they're a really good, comfortable, mid-table team. But they had their lead scorer last season was a chap called Rule Sotiriou. He scored 12 goals. He's gone to Bristol Rovers. It must have been at the end of his contract. He was on a free transfer. Also, Shaq Ford, they had on loan from Watford. He got 9 goals. So they were their 2 top scorers last season. They're not there anymore. So if you take those 2 out the team, their next top scorers that were left from last season have both got 5 goals. Ethan Galbraith and Daniel Agay, who started up front in their last game. So, but they have bought in, and I think this is some a good loan signing. So they've got Jamie Donnelly from Tottenham. He's one of the guys that we featured in our video about the connection between Chris Davis and the youngsters at Tottenham. We didn't say that he was coming here. We featured him as a number of players that could potentially make good loan stars.
I saw him against Charlton. He looked very good, actually. He was the one who was dangerous on the ball. They just they weren't getting him on the ball enough to create some damage, but he looked good, Jamie Donnelly.
He plays as their number 10, so they play a 4-2-3-1 as well. So, but he's their number 10. They've also brought in Sonny Perkins, another centre forward from Leeds United on loan. Lewis Warrington, a central midfielder from Everton, and a goalkeeper Zach Hemming from Middlesbrough. So they have made additions to the team, but I think that obviously they've took out their 2 top goal scorers, so that's fairness. And I think they've already in the first few games you've seen that they've clearly struggled for goals. They've only scored 1, which was against Bolton in the first game. I know we're only 2 games in, but
did you see that goal?
I didn't actually.
It really was a classic Route 1 goal. So the goalkeeper picked it up. He walked it just outside of the box, literally Route 1 over the top, and it went over the defender, and Charlie Kalman went through and scored. Was stripping it back down to basics. And I think the reason why I reference that goal, Dad, is because I think we'll see this against Blues, because we all know we have a high energy, we have the high press, we are go, go, go at the moment. Chris Davis really has us gunning and going at teams, don't we? So I think if they're struggling to play it from the back, we might see a more direct route of football. So just something to be aware of for Clara and Bielek. We can get to the Blues team in a minute, that we could be expecting a few long balls or a few balls over the top from Orient this weekend if our press works and they have to go back to that direct style of football. But the player for me who stands out is Charlie Kalman. He played up front in the first game against Bolton and got the goal, and he played on the right side of the attacking mid against Charlton. I believe actually he might be carrying an injury, so I'm not 100% sure whether he's going to be fit and back for the Blues game. But to me, Charlie Kalman is the man to watch if he's back and if he's fit, because he was causing both teams a lot of problems.
I think that what you mentioned there about teams playing direct is something we have to be very wary of, because we are playing possession football, because we are playing on the front foot. A couple of times Wycombe caught us out last week like that when they won the ball in possession, pinged the ball out. I think that led to the actual own goal.
Yeah, he did.
We got caught on the break. So we'll have to be careful of that, particularly when you've got fast players as well. What I found interesting as well in my research, I've looked at the average possession of both Blues and Orient, and I'll do this for every opposition we have this season. Now, Orient's average possession last season was 53%. So, that obviously would depend upon the opposition they're playing. But this season, against Charlton, there was 44%. And against Bolton, it was 47%. Now, you look at our possession, okay? So the 3 games that we've played this season, which includes the Carabao Cup against Charlton, Reading, 74%. This is overall possession. Charlton, 63%. And Wycombe, 74%. That tells us that we are going to have another lot of possession. But I would caution against this, because you don't need to have lots of possession to win games. So, for example, if I go back to the Coventry game, which we played at St.Andrews last season, which we won 3-0, in that game we only had 29% possession, yet we won that game 3-0. So all possession tells us is we get a lot of the ball. It's what you do with that possession that's absolutely crucial. So I mean,
you could have 90% of the ball, but if you're just pinging it from left back to right back over the course of your defence, it's meaningless.
Yeah.
So I mean, fair enough. We beat Wycombe 3-2, and the stats showed 74%, and we did dominate that game, but we only won it by 1 goal.
Yes.
So it just shows that possession is meaningless unless you can put the ball in the net.
And that's all it is. So you could have all that possession. That a team could just have one break and score the goal, then shut up shop, and they could actually win the game. So it's more to do.
Eustace ball was that, wasn't it?
Yeah, very much so. It's more about being effective in terms of the way in which we actually utilise that ball as well. But I think with the way we played against Wycombe, I think that we are going to put Orient under a lot of pressure. they're going to be, and it depends on how they cope with that pressure. But we've got to make sure, we mentioned this, didn't we, Matt, in the post-match Wycombe video about the fact that we've got to cut out those silly mistakes at the back, because there's one or two chances that Wycombe had where they didn't score, where other teams would. Do you know what I mean? So
your Huddersfield could have punished us, couldn't they? You know,
yeah,
just not being disrespectful to Wycombe, but your players, your teams with a bit more higher quality in the attacking third could have really punished us, couldn't they?
Chris Davis will know this. I mean, they'll be analysing that match and saying, well, you know, we need to be better than this. And so we know that it's going to be a process, but we still need to be wary because it's a bit of a wounder. We have all that possession, and then suddenly you're deflated when we go 1-0 down. And actually, going 1-0 down as well makes that task all the more harder, because now you've got to score 2 goals to win. And thankfully, we did enough. Just on back to Orient, just briefly before we talk about Blues. Last season, they had 23 home games. They won 9, drew 5, and lost 9. So they're very beatable at home. They had a very similar away record, actually. Their away record was not identical, but very close. Won 9, drew 6, and lost 8. So they were very, very similar in terms of the way in which the amount of games that they win and lose away from home. As I say, for them, it will depend on how they adapt to this lack of goals. Is going to be their problem, I think. But with a player like Jamie Donnelly, who's a bright young player, you know, he could be a shining light for them this season.
And Charlie Kalman, he knows whether he's a good player. So I think they're the two to watch for me going forward, especially Donnelly and Kalman. And I did read a thread a couple of days ago on Orient, because I have been watching their games progressively. You know, now we're in League One, I like to watch a League One football. I think you adapt to the league that you're in, don't you? And even on the Friday, the first weekend, there was a Championship game and there was a League One game. I ended up watching the League One game. I think it was Barnsley versus Mansfield. I thought it was quite interesting.
I did that, and I think to myself, what am I doing? I'm watching it, but I thought, actually, we're in this division.
Exactly. A bit of a reality check, wasn't it? Anyway, this thread had a little few positives and negatives the way Orient play. So just really, really quickly, a few strengths. They are aggressive. They have good passages of play down the right, and they can be successful when they go more direct and with long balls. They're quite experienced at that. And a few weaknesses, they're prone to individual errors. Case in point, first game against Bolton, there was a goalkeeper error. Give away silly fouls, and they allow too much space for teams in the central attacking positions. They're like 3 positives and negatives to the Orient game. But if I'm going to be honest, Dad, we'll get into the Blues team now in a minute. But I think we're going to have a lot of possession. I think we will tire them out and break them down like we have been doing.
Our fitness levels are off the radar, aren't they?
There's a consistent pattern here of us grinding down teams. And again, I know this is a ludicrous comparison, but Man City in the Premier League, they tire you out. They just pass it round so you've got no energy. And I think we're doing a similar style to that in League One as well. And I'm noticing around the 75-minute mark, teams are just flagging. They've got nothing left in the legs or the tank to give. So I think we're going to see that again. But I think if we cut out the silliness or a little bit of the mistakes at the back there that we saw against Wycombe, I think we'll do just fine. And I think we're going to have too much power and depth. Depth is a key thing. We've got squad in depth. I think we'll have too much depth for Orient.
Oh, I think so as well. I'm just going to very, very quickly go through the team that started for Leyton Orient in their last match. So they had Hemming in goal. He's the guy they got on loan. Left back they got Clare. Right back they've got I think it's Janice, his name is, and then the 2 centre halves are Hap and Cooper. In their central midfield they have started with Arbero and Brown. Then they had O'Neill on the left. Nice name, O'Neill. Obviously, as you know, that's our name. Not related, by the way. Kalman, the guy you mentioned, he was on their right. And then they had Donnelly just behind Aguiar up front. So I'm guessing, depending upon injuries and possibly, as you mentioned, whether Kalman's fit or not, they will start with a very similar lineup to that. That seems to be their chosen lineup. But they will play a very similar system to us, 4-2-3-1. So it's going to be about, for us, if they're playing the same system, it's going to be about us outpassing them and winning those individual battles as well. But that's the lineup I think that is highly possible, depending upon whether Kalman is actually injured or not.
Because they have picked up a few injuries along the way. And again, in that post-match interview, their manager was saying some players will be touch and go. He'll let them know a little bit closer to the time. So who knows what their injury status is and who they'll start, but I think we'll see a lineup a lot closer to the Charlton game. And if I'm being selfish, I really hope Charlie Kalman's injured, because he's, for me, their biggest threat. So
I think I was just thinking while you were talking there that this is going to play into our hands, because we have got strength in depth now in all positions. As teams start to get injuries, like we will have players to fill in our injuries, but they might not have the strength of squad that we've got, and that's going to tell towards the middle end of season, where we possibly have good strength. But like the substitutes that came on against Wycombe, it's like
class, aren't they?
They're class, aren't they? Yeah, exactly. You weren't thinking, oh dear, that's a bit of a dodgy sub.
No.
So I think it's going to be a really, really interesting game. Obviously, just you mentioned the strengths and weaknesses. I've done that as well. I think I've picked up similar things to you. Some of their strength is creating chances with through balls, which obviously a lot of teams are doing that. Aerial duels, they're strong at as well. So we're going to have to be pretty aware of that, particularly when they've got corners, free kicks, and other set pieces as well. They're good at protecting the lead as well, which would have worried me before. In terms of, well, you don't want someone to park the bus, but I'm less concerned about that now with this current team that we've got, because even if a team starts to protect the bus, I think we can find a way through. So that's really good. Their weaknesses, finishing scoring chances. So obviously they miss a number of chances. They're classified as one of their weaknesses.
I did see that in both games as well. They had enough chances to get some points against Bolton and Charlton, and they scuppered quite a few. So I think even if the worst was to happen this weekend and we gift them a few chances, they could end up spooning them or ruining them anyway. But anyway, I have seen that in action from Orient over the last few games.
And they're also prone, I think you mentioned, to give fouls away in dangerous areas as well. So there's always a possibility of a penalty or a free kick or something
Referees
like that.
in League One don't give penalties.
We've only had 2 games, haven't we? We've already seen some pretty ropey examples, haven't we? So that's it for Orient now. So I think, like anything, we do not underestimate any opposition. Every opposition, like mentioned about what Richie Wellens will be telling his team, get at them, but really sort of make sure
winning their individual battles across the park. That'll be a key message in the Orient.
That'll be enough motivation for them, because they'll know that they'll want to put up against performance against us. So but Chris Davis will have our players knowing that.
Also, if I was an Orient player and I saw 4 million, 2 million, one player, I'd want to go out there and give the best performance of my life. It is that cup final element, isn't it? You want to give your all.
Yeah, because you're measuring yourself against somebody that's got a massive fee. So you think to yourself, actually, I was better than you, and you're worth 4 million.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
So you want to get one over.
It's pride.
Yeah,
pride,
and I remember when I was a kid and we used to play the bigger teams in the cups. You'd always up your game because you wanted to prove to yourself that you could play at the higher level. That's just almost like a psychological thing in football. So I think they'll be well up for it, but I still think we're going to have enough quality to be on the day. But let's get into the Blues team, Dad, and see what we think our Blues are
we'll do what we normally do. We'll go through the team from back to front and decide who we think will be in Philo's position. So goalkeeper?
Bradley Peacock Farrell seems to be the first choice for the league, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think that's nailed on that he'll be. Okay, let's go right back.
So right back will be Laird, almost certainly. Left back will be Cochrane, and in the middle I'm going to go for Bielek and Clara, exactly the same as the Wycombe setup. Yeah,
I think that Sanderson will be back. I can't remember. I think he only got a 1-match suspension, so he will be available.
I think he'll be on the bench.
But yeah, that's what I'm going to say. But even my point was, even though he's available, I don't think he can displace Clara with his performance against Wycombe. Yeah. So I agree with you totally that it's going to be Laird at right back, Cochrane at left back, and we'll have Bielek and Clara in the middle.
I mean, Clara's so dominant in the air, isn't he?
I really like him.
He's big, he's physical. I love everything about him.
What I liked about Wycombe as well, when Wycombe were lofting those balls up, he literally won nearly everything, didn't he? He hardly had to jump, to be honest, didn't he? I really like him, So I think he'll be nailed on to start. And that gives Sanderson a battle now to win his place back.
Yeah, good.
Which is good.
Good competition, absolutely.
Okay, so let's go to...
centre mids. Yeah. So I think it's nailed on Paik and Leonard to be the starting 2, isn't it?
I think so, absolutely. Yes, we agree on that as well. What about on the left wing?
So, I mean, he didn't have a bad game, but slightly underwhelming, a bit less effective in certain parts was Hansen against Wycombe, but... Still really great player. I really love Hansen, and he's almost nailed on to start, isn't he? Really, for me.
I've put him down as well. Obviously, Dembele didn't even get on the bench against Wycombe, and there's rumours that potentially there's teams interested in him in the transfer window. I think it'll be Hansen as well. I think he'll start on the left. So what about the right?
This is interesting, isn't it? Because I, again, didn't have a bad game, but he had an underwhelming game. I didn't think Keshi Anderson was as strong in the Wycombe game as he was in previous. So it could go to Miyoshi or Anderson. I'm not 100% sure. You know what? I think he's going to make a swap. I think he could start with Miyoshi against Orient.
So I disagree, which is fine because we're just speculating. I think he'll stick with Anderson.
Yeah, he might well do.
But I completely understand what you're saying because Anderson didn't have the greatest game against Wycombe, but I think he's done enough in what we've seen so far to get the nod.
By the way, I think Anderson's having a great season. If he starts, I will not be upset or offended by that. I've just got a feeling... with Orient as being the opposition, I think he could start with Miyoshi in this game.
I think as well, from what I've seen, I think Miyoshi is much more effective coming on as a sub. I think if
Bit,
you,
bit of an impact sub.
I think he's obviously got technical ability in that, but he seems to be more in the game. Doesn't he makes more things happen when he comes on as a sub. He sort of lets the game go by at certain phases when he's on from the start. I think it'll be Anderson, but you're right. I mean, it
Could go either way, couldn't it?
go. But I'm going to put my money on Anderson.
Fair enough. Yeah,
starting
cool.
there. Okay, so then that brings us to number 10. Then, so who's going to be?
So I think if Williamson's fit, I think he'll start Williamson. But obviously he was carrying a niggle before the Wycombe game, and when he came on against Wycombe, he went off with a concussion. So it's all in the hands of the injury, whether he's back in time. If he's back, I think Williamson will start. If not, perfectly happy with Harris in that number 10.
Either of them. Harris was very good.
They're both good.
Yeah, I like the energy that Harris gives. I like
passion as well.
Do you know what I liked about his goal as well? It's just that that we lacked this so much last season about having players in the right positions to put the ball in. He was there,
and he had one cleared off the line in the first half.
Yeah,
so he's putting himself in the right positions to get goals. And I think the number 10, as I said earlier in the podcast, is the key. Really is the key to winning this game. So Williamson or Harris, and I'm happy with either. I really am. I think they're both great players. I think if Williamson's fit, he'll start. If not, he'll play Harris. But Harris, I think, has borderline earned his place as well. A bit like what we said about Anderson before the Wycombe game.
I do as well.
Harris had a great game against Wycombe, so I think he would possibly be a bit upset if he didn't start off the back of that performance. But for me, either of them starting, both great.
I think if I'm Chris Davis, I want to create a culture of a team that players that know that if they play well and they've done their job, they're going to get the nod again. I think he did enough. I think Harris has earned that right to start. Yes,
I think you're right.
Yeah, you're absolutely perfectly right. Williamson was really good when he came on. He scored that goal, put himself about. But I think that, in my opinion, I think Harris has done enough to start at number 10. But what I really like about our team now, which we haven't had for ages, is that we have got this strength in depth as well. So, every player knows, like Luke Harris knows if he has a bad half an hour, he's got Williamson breathing down his neck. Ethan Laird knows he's got Samstead breathing down his neck. Obviously, Cochrane at the moment, he's thinking, well, Buchanan will be back at some point, so he's going to have competition as well. So there's competition all around our team, and that is what is going to win us a lot of games.
Yeah, agreed. I love it. And when was the last time, Dan? No loans either, apart from Harris. We've got a fully... Harris and Stamstead. We've got a fully contracted team, good ages, good depth now. How so good to have a Blues team with a bit of quality, bit of depth that we know now that no one's indispensable and they've got to be on their A game to swap them and so to not be swapped out. And Chris Davis says that, doesn't he? He likes this problem. He likes the competition, which is great. Last thing from me, Dad. Which
just finish off our team, Alfie, mate, up front.
Sorry, I almost feel like that's a given at this point.
So do I. But we'd have people commenting, well, who we playing up front?
Fair enough. Alfie, mate, up front.
Yeah.
But for me, I want to see a bit more bravery with shots at distance. I want to see us testing keepers. I want to see 20 yards, 25 yards. I want to see us having a pop at the keeper a bit more. And we saw our team get into some really good positions against Wycombe. And I felt like Paik was a couple of seconds off pulling the trigger. I felt we had a couple of times when we could have shot a little bit earlier. I want to see some testing the keeper at distance and see what these keepers are made of. Because against Wycombe, if we're going to be honest, the keeper had to just dig the ball out the net 3 times, didn't he? We had 3 great passages of play. But I want to see some shots at distance. I want to see a few more chances created from open play. If we can cut that sloppiness out the back, I think we're on to a winner here. And I do think, genuinely, we've got a bit too much quality here for Orient. And if people watched our video yesterday, Dad, they would have known our score prediction anyway. But I'm going to reiterate it on the video. I've gone for a 4-2 away win for Birmingham City. Yeah,
and I've gone for 3-1. And both of us said, Matt, in that video, didn't we, that we both feel at this point of the season, so early, that we are still vulnerable to conceding goals until we cut out those silly mistakes. So I think both of us have not confident at the moment for a clean sheet, but we're confident that we're going to get plenty of goals. So you went 4-2, I went 3-1.
Yeah. To be honest, I think the longer the season goes, the less I'll have these worries. I think we are going to get stronger. We are still a team in the process of gelling and clicking, and I feel like these not even defensive errors, it's just a chance for them to click a little bit more in the team. We will get sharper. We will get better at the back. We will create more chances from open play going forward. We're only, in my opinion, genuinely, we're only in second or third gear at the moment. We've got 2 or 3 to crank it up. And when we get there, I think we're going to be a real force. But for me, while we're still clicking, I can see us conceding a few goals. Yeah. Anyway, that's our thoughts. So, as always, Birmingham City supporters, we'd love to hear from you. Please let us know your thoughts and comments in the section below. What are your thoughts for the game? Do you agree with our score predictions? Have you got some predictions of yourselves? And what can we expect, do you think, from our fixture away at Orient? If you like this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And please check out please check us out, on our social media channels. We have an Instagram page, we have an X page, and we're also now on Spotify as well. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please don't forget to subscribe. It's just so you don't miss any future videos all about Birmingham City. And myself and Dad will see you on the next video.